This is He Knows Everything, bringing you that heat and fire. We keeping the foot on the what on the Knicks. We keeping the foot on the what on the Knicks. Let's talk about it, man.
Go ahead, He knows.
When they say don't kick a man while he's down, like Letitia Crawford is talking about, you guys have to start putting two and two together. We live in a world called the Matrix. We live in an illusion. When you step outside of the illusion and you step outside of the Matrix, you can start seeing things for what they are. You yourself can be a Neo. You just have to use critical thinking. See, they've programmed us to think that what we saw in Spence and Crawford was real, but in actuality, it was artificial. Let me say it again. They've conditioned you to think what you saw in Spence and Crawford was real, but in actuality, it's artificial. When you hear Letitia Crawford is telling you, don't kick a man while he's down, she's letting you know how the rematch is going to play out. This is a bilateral rematch deal. This is ultimately going to lead to a trilogy. Let me say it again. It is a bilateral rematch deal that's ultimately going to lead to a trilogy. If people are paying attention to the history of the sport of boxing, you don't want these types of deals. Because when you see these types of deals, it lets you know there's going to be some buffoonery. There's going to be some nonsense. There's going to be some mischief. There's going to be fairy tale. There's going to be storyline. There's going to be basically what we would say, something that looked like it came from a movie. Something that looked like you were watching a Lifetime movie. Something that looked like basically fiction. Not nonfiction, but fiction. And the fiction is as simple as this. Terence Crawford won a non-credible win. I'm going to say that again. Terence Crawford won a non-credible win. They let him come in with loaded gloves, with padded gloves. Notice Terence Crawford did not take off his gloves at the end of the fight. Fighters typically take off their gloves. That's the first thing that they do. It's a things that make you say, It's a things that make you say, He did not take off the gloves. Why didn't he take off his gloves? See, I don't think, man. I catch every little nuance, every little thing. This man had his gloves on the whole time. What did he have to hide? In those gloves, they were padded, they were loaded. See, when he talked about taking away Errol the True Spence jab, what he was talking about was hitting Errol Spence's jab hand with loaded and padded gloves. If you hit somebody in their jab hand, you're going to hurt them, especially when you're a fighter and you already have snappy power, which Terence Crawford has as his truest and his most properest levels. But all of a sudden, power that could erupt, power that could just all of a sudden put Errol Spence on his caboose. Spence is durable. Spence is sturdy. Y'all really got to start looking at the nuances associated behind this. The first deal that was cut within this fight was to go to Terence Crawford. They had to build him up. You got to understand, who has more to gain in the first fight? It's not Errol the True Spence. It's Terence Crawford, because remember, he didn't match up. He was the smoke and mirrors boxer. So they had to prop him up. They had to build him up. They had to make him look like he was Transformers, more than meets the eyes. Because at the end of the day, he was not more than meets the eyes. He was a smoke and mirrors, a chihuahua barking behind a damn fence. So they had to bring him up. They had to graduate his doggy status into big dog status. Let me say it again. They had to graduate his doggy status into big dog status. And what better way to graduate your doggy status into big dog status than clipping the big fish? You see, guys got to start thinking. Guys got to start critically seeing things for what it is. And when you start really looking at everything for what it is, when you look at the rematch and you see how 180 it goes in Errol the True Spence's favor, right now it's not going to sink in. But everybody's going to be like, man, he knows what's right, man. Because how the fuck did Terence Crawford win a cockamamie non-credible fight, but then Errol Spence punishes him and mangles him in the rematch at 154? Very clear that boxing has to do what boxing does. Boxing is like Vegas. You know how Vegas, the house always wins? Well, in boxing always wins. Let me say it again. You know how in Vegas, the house always wins? Well, in boxing always wins. Well, boxing has to win as simple as this. That they got to get bread. Remember, it's a dying sport that needs life. It needs a jolt. This right here, this trilogy gave it the jolt it needed. They saw what Wilder and Fury did, that fairy tale nonsense of a trilogy. So they said, you know what? We need the super jolt. We need the fight of the ages that everybody wanted to see. And that was Spence versus Crawford. But we need to push this thing out to a trilogy. We've had guys slip and tell us that it was going to be a trilogy. Andre Ward said, don't be surprised if this is a trilogy. We've had Floyd Mayweather said, don't be surprised if you see these guys fight multiple times. So the powers that be were alluding to you and letting you know how this was going to pan out. How do you know that you're going to fight multiple fights if you don't even know the outcome of the first fight? It's things that make you say, It's things that make you say, because in the contract, it is written out. Look, you
Go
get this
ahead,
first fight.
knows.
In the second fight, when we run it back, things are going to come back to the natural order of things. And the natural order of things is Spence is supposed to dominate. When Spence is not dominating, it is not the natural order of things. I know people don't want to hear this. I know people are looking at He Knows Everything like the villain. People say you're a sore loser. I'm not a sore loser. I'm just a person that sees things for what they are. And see, everyone's going to come back by the end of December and they're going to be like, man, He Knows is a prophet. He's a seer. Because he saw this thing for what it is. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be like, you know what, He Knows? You were absolutely right. How the fuck did Errol the True Spence didn't look like Errol the True Spence in the first fight? But in the second fight, he was demolishing Crawford. And all these people saying his medical report, you see the trauma he had. They got to build up Terence but Crawford. They didn't need to build up Spence. Spence was already built up. Let me say it again. They had to build up Terence Crawford. They didn't need to build up Errol the True Spence because Errol the True Spence was already built up. So how do you build a guy up? You tear another guy down. So when you build someone up, someone has to be torn down. One must increase in order for the other to decrease. Will Terence but Crawford increase while Errol the True Spence decrease? That's what happened in this fight. I know a lot of people were thinking this, but it took He Knows Everything to grab his cojones like he always does, stand on his shield of his ball sacks, and tell you guys exactly what it is. And what it is this is an illusion. This is the Matrix. And at the end of the war, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. They had to make Terence but Crawford a credible fighter. This is what boxing determined. This is what boxing decided. This was the fate for right now, that he had to win the battle. But the war is far from over. This is why I know come December, he's going to get tactically aggressive. He's going to get technically punched. And the placement is going to be there with the full durability, with the full unlimited pressure, because pressure does what? It bursts his pipes. And you're also going to get the caveat of the fact that he's going to get body snatching work. All of a sudden, Errol the True Spence, his abilities will be activated. See, they deactivated his ability. Woof. What I said was so deep and profound. So hear me, motherfucking well. They deactivated his ability because he had to pay the price for talking shit about the sanctioning bodies. You see, in boxing, it doesn't run like other sports. It runs like Las Vegas. You don't go against the house. When you go against the house, you have to pay the price. So the house said, you know what, Errol the True Spence, we got to get that thing about you. And that's what they did. They got the thing about him. I know people don't want to accept this for what it is. But at the end of the day, Al Heyman, whether I like Al Heyman or not, he's part of boxing.
Go ahead,
PBC is part of boxing. People are like, what the fuck? Yes. These guys are businessmen. And if you run business, you understand there's nothing personal about business. It's about making money. Al Heyman is not going to give a fuck about how the outcome of a fight is going to be unless he's seeing those dollars, man. It's about the dollar signs. And as a shrewd businessman that he is, he understands. He saw what he gained from Wilder and Fury. You guys got to understand, these guys walk out with 50 million each. 60 possibly with back end first fight. Second fight 100 plus. Third fight 150 plus. You don't think they're going to draw this shit out? You don't think they're going to make the storyline? You don't think they're going to make this an epic thing so that you boxing fans can enjoy it? But the problem with boxing fans is they've been neuro-linguistic programmed. They know that you're a brain full of mush and a brainwashed dodo head. So they can spew whatever nonsense they want to spew to you. So when it's all said and done, was this really a real fight? Or was this basically a fairy tale to bring back resuscitation to a dying sport? That's the cold-hearted. That's the unadulterated. That's the cutthroat truth teller fashion. I keeps the foot on the whoop on the Knicks. I keeps the foot on the whoop on the Knicks. This is He Knows Everything. Check it out.